Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we're back for another episode where we're going to detail to you guys kind of what the first round of your fantasy football league draft should look like, going picks 1 to 10. So we're going to start from the top. But before we do that, Genoa, how you feeling?
Justin and Dween Nation. Yo, Dween Nation. It's going well. Hey, if you guys don't know anything about us here at Dween Nation, we love our fantasy football season. We take it so seriously. Justin and I are involved in, 3 to 4 leagues together.
For sure.
As well as daily fantasy sports, guys. We do it all here at Dween Nation. We're so excited to get into officially fantasy season as we're hitting mid-July. This is the time of year, Justin. Mock drafts start to heat up. Going into early August, that's where everybody across the globe starts doing their fantasy punishments and start figuring out how they're going to start drafting. And from August 1st, it's all free game and it's all open to start drafting. Just I'm excited to get it down on how we're going to break down this first round in fantasy drafts this year.
Yeah, and the first round, you could argue, hey, everybody's good, right? You can't go wrong. You got to find the right spots. There is a lot of safe players in the first round, as well as some risky pieces. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to start at the top, at the number 1 overall pick. I will have the odd numbers for this. We're going to go to 10, and he'll have the even numbers. But we're going to start number 1, pretty chalk. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey from the San Francisco 49ers. By far was the best player we saw last year. And I mean, he's in a position again to do the exact same thing. Nothing really changed for the 49ers. And he does everything. He's getting catches. He scored, what was that streak? He had like 16 or 17 straight games with touchdowns. I know it was broken this past season, but the Niners need him. He's their best player on offense. And I know there's been a stretch of years now where the RB1 does not repeat. But you shouldn't bet on that to happen just based on the situation. Obviously, injury could play into it, but we're not forecasting injury. We're forecasting him being on the field, and in doing so, he's got the best opportunity out of any player in the league, and especially fantasy football, and he should repeat as the number 1 running back. And so I have Christian McCaffrey there at the number 1. What do you think?
I love it. You got to understand, with the 49ers, they're still hunting for that Super Bowl, and I do think they have a bad taste from their mouth. Also, what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. I think there's something going on there with Deebo Samuel as well, Justin. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
There's something going on there that's kind of hitting there, but definitely with Ayuk, that's out in the open.
Right.
And Ayuk looks to be probably heading out, but maybe he can hold out, but maybe he can still play. You don't really know with Ayuk. He had a great fantasy season, but hey, with the 49ers offense, they're going to need to get rolling, and it starts with Christian McCaffrey for sure.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Ayuk, if he's there, McCaffrey's still, number 1 needed. If he's not there, and then he might even have to carry a little bit more. So McCaffrey is set up for some major success. But I'll take it to you for the number 2 pick.
Yeah, so number 2, I'm going to go with Ceedee Lamb. I wanted to go with Tyreek Hill. You got to understand, when it comes down to quarterback and shootout potential, with Dallas Cowboys, they get so much national television attention, Justin, and they're always involved in shootouts. Also, I've always noticed this with the Cowboys in the Dak Prescott era. They actually start off the first quarter very slow, and sometimes they get into 13-point, 20-point deficits, and it forces Dak Prescott to pass, and that helps out fantasy. It doesn't matter what the score is in a football game like that. As long as it's Dak Prescott throwing it to Ceedee Lamb, he is the guy that's going to get you, 8 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown 2 there. This is a guy that won fantasy championships, Justin, with that dominant game against the Lions.
97-yard touchdown.
He had a 97-yard touchdown. I know people that won or could have won fantasy championships with that. So you can't ignore the fact that Ceedee Lamb is going into a contract year, I believe, Justin.
Yeah.
He's going to need to prove that, that he's going to be the guy in Dallas, as well as there is a lack of depth there in Dallas, just a little bit. So I feel like he's going to be the number 1 guy going forward. I feel like the offense always stays well as long as, McCarthy's the head coach. So definitely Ceedee Lamb there at the 2 spot.
I completely agree. I'd be on the same wavelength with you on that, especially with Gallup's out of town. They only have Brandon Cooks and Ceedee Lamb, and you could argue Jake Ferguson, and a really lackluster running attack as it looks right now. So they're going to need Ceedee to do exactly what he did over that back after like week 6. He was by far the number 1 wide receiver. And Dak's in a contract year too, so he should be balling out. The defense is coming off of some injuries. Obviously, they lose Dan Quinn, so there might be some early struggles where the offense is going to have to, step up and carry the defensive side. So completely agree with Ceedee. Moving to 3, I'm going to go with Jamar Chase, Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are currently my Super Bowl favorite. As we spoke with our bold predictions, about a month ago or a couple months ago, I had Eagles, Bengals. I haven't moved from that yet. And just with Jamar and Joe Burrow, I feel like there's a lot of they're like built up in their they're tense because they've been held back by injuries and other situations, and now they have a chance where they're both healthy coming into this year. Because Burrow started out hurt the last 2 seasons, that they could start out hit the ground running hard, fast. He wants his contract extension, and Burrow I think he's going to be on a warpath, and that's going to relate to Jamar getting his money and getting some catches, touchdowns. So I have Jamar at 3.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you talk about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I mean, that connection dates all the way back into their days in college at LSU, where they were able to bring a national championship in Baton Rouge there. But that's going to carry on now. It just all depends if Joe Burrow's healthy and Jamar Chase is healthy. I do think that they're with T. Higgins. If he's there, I do believe he's going to be there. It doesn't affect that at all. I do think if T. Higgins is not there, it affects it just a tad bit. Just because I feel like there's going to be a lot of double coverage there for Jamar Chase. Yeah. But if T. Higgins is there, you can plug. I mean, Jamar Chase is no doubt a top 5 pick, so definitely like that there at the 3 spot, Justin. So, definitely like Jamar Chase as we're getting into a wide receiver era of the first 5 picks. It was always running backs before Justin Jefferson got drafted, but I think that kind of changed once Jefferson and Jamar and now Ceedee Lamb and A.J. Brown, all those cats, even Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, for sure.
We're about to say his name here in a second, definitely. So, definitely perfect there at the 3 spot.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead. Take 4.
So, hey, just mention his name. It's the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill. He's at 4, and that's a good spot for if you get Tyreek Hill at the 4th or 5th. I mean, look, we understand that Tua is a little bit of an inconsistency at quarterback, but you got to understand that Tua's going to get his, and Tyreek Hill. It always seems to me, Justin, every time I'm turning on a Dolphins game, and if they're home, Tyreek Hill is scoring a touchdown, and it always seems to be 30-plus yards. It can be a catch and run from Tyreek. It can just be a deep throw. It can be a slant, and he just takes it and runs it with it. So I definitely like Tyreek Hill at the 4 spot to be drafted. And,
I completely – I love that pick. I mean, Tyreek was on the path to be the wide receiver 1. He got a little nicked up in week, 14 or 15, kind of slowed his momentum. Right. But he's got all of it to be the number 1. I know he's quarterback Tua. We are a little shaky on. But he was still performing when Tua was hurt, not this past season, but the season before at, a top tier level. So Tyreek's set to have another great season. I know Waddle was kind of battling some injuries last year, so that could be a concern now that he's healthy, maybe taking a little bit more from Tyreek. But Tyreek's just too good. He's going to be a problem for, every other team, and you'd be happy to have him at the 4th overall. So absolutely. I like Tyreek there. I'm going to jump to 5. And I'm thinking about this one. Do I jump to running back or do I stick with wide receiver? You know what?
I say keep the trend with wide receiver. It's the wide receiver era in fantasy, Justin. I'm not going to lie to you.
All right. You know what? I'm going to do this then. I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St.Brown.
That's the great pick.
The Detroit Lions. I think you could argue he is, besides maybe McCaffrey and Tyreek and even Ceedee, he's probably the safest, one of the safer wide receivers in this class, in this draft class, because he's the number 1 guy for Jared Goff. I mean, he gets tons of receptions, tons of looks. He just got paid, and he's just in a great offense where they're going to be battling for the division lead, for the conference lead, and Amon is he's too good to not pass up here. So what do you think?
I obviously agree with that. Amon-Ra St.Brown is a stud at the wide receiver position. Ever since he's been drafted a few years back, he has got better every single year. As so the Lions, they are a top 3 team. In the NFC. So, Dan Campbell's going to have that team ready to go. Jared Goff, it always seems to be at home. He's always in shootouts. He's always performing well. And I always, Amon-Ra, it's rather Amon-Ra or Laporta that's always getting targeted in the red zone. They're always scoring. Yeah. They are red zone machines, PPR machines, touchdown machines. So definitely it is not a bad choice at all to go Amon-Ra St.Brown with the 5th pick. But Justin, to be fair, you can make the argument that he could go number 1 overall. Maybe. You can mention that, hey, Christian McCaffrey's had so many great years. You can expect maybe decrease. So maybe Amon-Ra could be the guy that breaks out, but definitely like him at the 5th pick.
Yeah.
Love it.
Sweet. All right, jump to 6 for me.
So we're going to break it. We're going to go back to running back, and I'm going here with Bijan Robinson. You got to understand now that the Falcons are a top choice to win their division.
Yeah.
And Bijan Robinson, he ended the year so great. Obviously, he had a weird season from week 1 to week 13. It was weird. It was up and down, but he showed many flashes of being a great NFL running back. But the last week of the season in New Orleans, he had a crazy game. I think he had a 70-yard receiving touchdown, and that was some foreshadowing what's going to be going on in Atlanta now with Raheem Morris as head coach. And so, definitely Kirk Cousins is going to be looking for him, getting him dump-off passes, and that's going to help his PPR stock as well, Justin.
Definitely.
So expect Bijan Robinson to not only get 100 yards rushing, but also 100 yards receiving, and it's going to be very watch-to-watch Bijan Robinson this year. And if you get him at pick 6, that's a crazy bargain, Justin. I'm not going to lie to you. What do you think?
Yeah, so Bijan, I look at it, I hear it just literally every week, every other day, Raheem Morris talking about how they have so many packages and uses for Bijan this season. And I know people might be worried from last year. It's a completely different offense. We got Zach Robinson running the offense, so I wouldn't have to worry about what it looked last year for Bijan. He should get catches out of the backfield too, so we should be totally set there. I like Bijan. I know the argument between Bijan and Breece, which is a tough one. So I'll jump to me now with Bijan. Passing from Bijan, I'm going to go with Breece Hall, New York Jets. Breece Hall fits the mold. Obviously, he was coming off the ACL and still was a top 3 or 4 running back last year. It's phenomenal. And that's with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Now he's got Aaron Rodgers. He's got another year past his ACL tear. And he should be fully ready to go. They upgraded the offensive line with Morgan Moses. They got Olu Fashanu. Yeah. So I think Breece Hall, arguably, I know you mentioned Amon-Ra maybe being number 1. I think Breece has the highest ceiling of this season, especially at the running back position. I know McCaffrey, you'd be like, oh, he should be highest. I think Breece has the highest ceiling. He definitely has a lower floor than McCaffrey does. But I think with Breece, just everything around him, with Rodgers can check the ball down to him. Breece honestly, that's what was saving Breece last year. He was getting a lot of catches. Yeah. But I think that volume in the receiving department stays, but his efficiency on the ground running the football will get better, and that's why I have Breece here.
No, I agree with you. Look, with Breece Hall, he's a pure rusher, though. You cannot deny the fact he's the guy that can take it from 80 yards deep, Justin. He is a rusher. It may not seem like it. It was an on and off year, but anytime, he could take it 80 yards from the house. And he's that type of guy. Out of all these running backs, even over McCaffrey and Bijan, he's the guy that can take it 80 yards all the way to the end zone. He's that type of guy. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, yeah. Take off with that. What are we at, 8?
So at 8, this is a guy that went number 1 last year, but now is at 8. It's crazy to see that Justin Jefferson is now going to be the guy at number 8. He does get a downgrade at quarterback, a little bit downgrade offense.
Right.
I feel like Kirk Cousins was so good at the play action, which opened so many opportunities for Justin Jefferson, as well as it did for Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison was having a killer first 6-7 weeks until Kirk Cousins got hurt. And so with Jefferson, I think his stock is only down just because of the quarterback position. But if JJ McCarthy can, do something and be a somewhat of a good rookie quarterback, we do believe that Jefferson's going to be that top guy again. So definitely Jefferson at 8 is pretty crazy. You can come back at the 12 spot and get a running back. So
Jefferson, his ceiling is phenomenal. Yeah. People are worried because of the quarterback, and that's why he is at 8 and not 1, because he'd be at 1 if Kirk was still around, in my opinion. It is a question mark. That is the risk, and it's a big risk because JJ, he's unproven. He's a young quarterback coming out of college. People are skeptical because he wasn't a high volume passer at Michigan, and also rookie quarterbacks don't usually, support a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. So there is a lot of question marks, but he is Justin Jefferson. He's been the best receiver since he joined the league. Yeah. And so you can't go wrong by not picking Jefferson. You just got to hope that the quarterback play doesn't damage him a little, too much. Definitely. At 9 now, this is to me where it gets kind of, I think the 8 is kind of set. You can pick the order how you like it, but once we get to 9, there's some options here. And I'm going to have to go with A.J. Brown for this one, okay?
Yes.
I was kind of, either doing A.J., Garrett Wilson, maybe Jonathan Taylor. But AJ just he offers a lot of safety. I think he's Jalen's number one target. I know they have a new offensive coordinator, but Kellen Moore is a pretty good OC. Keenan Allen had an almost career year last season with Kellen Moore, and so if they can feature AJ Brown like that, and I know Keenan kind of plays out of the slot most of the time, but AJ had that stretch of games where he had over 125 yards and and a touchdown in, I believe, 6 or 7 straight games, which broke Calvin Johnson's record. And then obviously the collapse of the Eagles kind of tarnished their entire rest of the season. But if we look at how that first half went and how there's some more promise this year with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, and kind of I think Nick Sirianni could argue is playing for his job. AJ Brown is kind of the pick I'm pretty confident in here.
Oh, yeah, I love A.J. Brown. I think Justin, for like the first 10, 11 games of the year, he had one game, like I think week 2 that was bad, but he had 100 yards, I would think, for like 8 or 9 straight games, Justin.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
He was always given 100 yards, and I would say the downfall of the Eagles toward the end of the season was part of the reason why was because A.J. Brown wasn't getting his targets where he just wasn't catching the ball. He wasn't doing anything with his opportunities, and I feel like they sort of fell off from there. I think you have to say that the head of the snake, obviously they had the tush push last year, and it was very popular, but the head of the snake of the Eagles offense is actually A.J. Brown. If he's getting his 6 to 7 catches a game, 100 yards, and his touchdown, the Eagles are going to be winning football games, and no doubt about it. That is a promise. That is a guarantee. It's a fact. It's proven. If A.J. Brown is getting going, the Eagles offense is going to be tough to stop, and that is the reason why the Eagles were able to secure the 1 seed a couple years ago when they went into the Super Bowl, because A.J. Brown was balling, and last year they had the number 1 seed up until that clash against the 49ers, and if you remember that game, the 49ers beat the brakes off of them. I think it was like 42-19, and that game, I don't really think A.J. Brown had much to do with it. He probably did have a little bit here that Jalen Hurts got hurt in the middle of that game, but after that game, Brown wasn't the same. But if he can get it going, he's going to be a top receiver.
Yeah, as long as their system kind of stays afloat, not like how after week 10 how it happened. I think AJ's set to be a top 5, top 6 wide receiver. All right, now we're at 10. I want you to close us out here.
So the final pick here, it was tied between Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley. But since we already talked about one Eagle, let's talk about someone different. And we're going to go with Jonathan Taylor here.
All right.
And last year, he had a weird year. He was hurt, and then he had a little bit of some frustration with the contract issues. Zach Moss was taken off there. But now that Zach Moss is in Cincinnati, and now that it's for sure that Jonathan Taylor is the guy in Indianapolis, he is going to be – it's crazy to get him at 10, Justin. In a snake draft with 10 teams, you get the 10th pick, and we can go with Jonathan Taylor, who's led the league in rushing before. He was, he had a great year 2 years ago.
The RB1 a couple years ago.
RB1 a couple years ago, and now he's healthy now. He looks good. The Colts are a great team with Anthony Richardson back from his injury.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you can get Jonathan Taylor at the 10th pick, and then you have a back-to-back pick for a snake, you can get a guy like Puka or Garrett Wilson, or even
stack on running backs maybe with Saquon.
Maybe get a Saquon and Taylor stack, maybe a Taylor and Gibbs, or a Taylor and Puka, or Wilson, special. Or Devontae Adams, who maybe goes late in the second.
Yeah.
Hey, you have yourself a team, and it's going to be fun to see how your season turns out there, Justin.
Yeah, and I love Taylor. I mean, he's shown that he could be the RB1. Yeah. Injuries, contract has kind of derailed it, but now he's got Shane Steichen. I know we haven't seen AR and Jonathan Taylor together, so that'll be the interesting duo. Hopefully AR doesn't steal too many touchdowns. I think that's where the concern could be. And hopefully AR maybe checks down, some passes to Jonathan Taylor. But Taylor's just – the talent is too good. The O-line is great. The coaching is great. He's kind of set up for success. Zach Moss, as you mentioned, is not there anymore. I think they realized that maybe Taylor was going through some injuries. Zach Moss was playing really well, so they lightened his load. But then we actually saw Taylor kind of step in and start taking more near the end of the season. So Taylor at 10 I think is a really good move. And I like that pick. So that's the top 10 picks. We had McCaffrey, Ceedee, Jamar, Tyreek, Amon-Ra, Bijan, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, and now Jonathan Taylor. That's what we think the first round would look like as of today. It's as of today. We haven't hit training camp, so that's a couple weeks away. But yeah, top 10 set for us. So the first round, Genoa, send us out as always.
Yeah, sick memory, JP, from remembering that first. I would have probably messed up like CP8 or something. But hey, Dewey Nation, we love you guys. Hey, this is our first fantasy video, right, Justin?
I think it
This
might.
be our
we tapped
first.
into
Maybe we
fantasy.
have 1 or 2 in like March or something.
Right, we do.
But for the most part, this is our first like official going into the 2024 season. Dewey Nation, we love you guys. Hey, we are we love sports, but we have this is the heart and soul of doing sports is fantasy. And if you're a big fantasy guy, definitely check us out, Dewey Nation. We're going to be talking about fantasy all the way until championship weekend, whether we play week 17, week 18. We love our fantasy sports. We love our daily fantasy sports.
We do.
And so, Dewey Nation, if you love it,
pause it. Wait, hold up. I gotta shout out too that we are here in Dallas,
absolutely,
at the Bear Creek Golf Club. Just to thank this club and thank the Double Down Showdown for hosting us today. We're gonna have more live events today.
We can ask some guests about some fantasy questions as well.
Yes,
Nation, if you're into that fantasy stuff.
A live Q&A that we're gonna set with people at the golf course today. It's just so beautiful outside. I mean, I know it's kind of blurry. It's hot now and it's sunny, but we got the golf course right behind us. Hole 17, setting up to end the day. But yeah, you continue. Let's peace out.
No, absolutely. We're gonna peace out here, Dewey Nation. We love you guys, and as always, peace.